Hey, it's Dan, and welcome to Unified Gaming. So in this one, I want to break down the Archmage. The Archmage is hands down the best PvP sorcerer you will find out there. This thing works in Battlegrounds, in Cyrodiil, CP and no CP as of this patch, also in Duels and IC. It does it all. It has awesome sustain, great damage, huge magicka, thus amazing defense, and is just a blast to play. As with playing the build itself, rather than showing gameplay in this video, I do post that in a separate video that does come to the channel, so do subscribe to see how to play the build, see the build in action, and if you are curious, you can also see it live where I do stream every Saturday on YouTube at 9 PM UK time. As with the build itself, I want to break down the skills, the sets, everything you need to know, so do pay close attention, and as always, any questions do post down below and I'll do my best to answer. I will also be posting a superstar throughout this, so do keep an eye, and if you haven't done so, do subscribe, it really helps out. I want to say a massive thanks to all the people on YouTube members and on Patreon who get early access, exclusive content and much more. If you want to support myself there and get all that good stuff, there's details down below. As with this build, what race do you need? You need to have a race that is max magicka, so anything like Breton, High Elf or Dark Elf are the best races. I am currently a Breton on the live server, and as of recording, all of this is on the PTS, so you can see everything you need to get day one, and there's gameplay coming, so just subscribe for that, as I said. But with being a max magicka race, you get to boost it really high because of the sorcerer passive, so that is like the go-to route, in my opinion. Out of the three, I'd probably go Dark Elf is the best. High Elf, Breton, very similar. Dark Elf is probably the better one in my opinion, which I'll get to in a little bit. But as a Breton, you get magicka recovery, and also cost reduction. The difference between the three though won't make or break the build, it's just, if you want to min-max it, Dark Elf is slightly better in my opinion. For the attributes, we have 64 points in magicka. This gives us 53,000 magicka almost. This goes up to about 57,000 magicka fully buffed, which is insane. And those regens go to 2,000 when we're in combat, and our stuff just increases higher and higher and higher. It's actually stupid. If you are newer to the build though, do drop some health, some magicka, and add some health. That will really help you kind of just stay alive. 32k health is a really good sweet spot. Please note we do have Death Dealer's feet, so these do go up anyway to over 30,000 health, but if you want to kind of just have a bit more health before you're in combat, you can obviously just change it here. Mundus wise, we used the Mage Mundus this time, which is a bit unusual. I've tested extensively on live and on PTS Mage v Lover against actual players, not against target dummies, because that doesn't actually tell you anything, because Battle Spirit and all that stuff. What I found was that the Lover did hit harder, yes, but the damage difference was like 200 or 300 per skill, and 200 or 300 in my opinion is not going to kill somebody when they've got 30,000 health. That extra bit of damage isn't enough to get the kills. Even on a combo you're doing an extra 600-700 damage, it's not enough to finish people. Sorcerer is a burst class, and those extra little bits of damage isn't going to be enough to just tip it over the edge in most cases against good players. At which point the Mage actually became a really good option because we boost the magicka really high and it gives us bigger shields. So I'm going to try with the Mage. If you haven't tried the Mage, give it a go. If you want that bit more damage, the Lover is slightly higher, but it's just, and in my opinion, it's not worth it nowadays. You'll also see we're a Vampire, but we're a Vampire stage 1. I will touch upon this in a moment because there have been quite a few changes to Vampirism itself, and whether you want to use it or not is now more of a choice. So, yeah. As with the kind of consumables, I used Arteian Pickled Fishbowl. This is the best food you can get. It's stupid high max magicka, stupidly high max health. It is the best food for sorcerer, like, period. This will cover you amazingly well in CP environments, so Duels, in CP Cyrodiil, in CP IC. This is the go-to food. If you are newer to the build, or you play in no CP Battlegrounds, no CP Cyrodiil, or no CP IC, and yes, all of the sets work with the changes this patch, Citrus Fillet or Witch Mother's Potent Brew. Essentially, they give you max health, max magicka, and magicka recovery. You will drop that max magicka quite a bit, but you have that more sustain, which will help in no CP environments, or help if you're learning the build. And as for the potions, I use tri-potions because they cover everything. Health is just health. Stamina is great because you can turn it to magicka as a sorcerer. And magicka is just our damage on our defense skill. So it's just the fuel we use. It's really, really good. With the skills and vampirism in particular, with being a vampire, you get access to this passive called Undeath. But this is only achieved if you are a stage 3 vampire. As a stage 3 vampire, under the feed passive, you can see that you get some negatives. Your skills cost 8% more, you take 13% more damage, and you also have 6% less health recovery. Obviously, the health recovery is also halved in PvP anyway. So if you had 1000 health recovery, it's now 500 because of Battle Spirit, and then you lose 60% of that. So you get very little anyway, but I wouldn't focus on the health recovery nerf. It's more the fire damage and the ability cost. The ability cost, we can sustain this at stage 3 absolutely fine. We have loads to sustain. The fire damage taken, this used to be ignored because Undeath was so strong, up to 30%, meant that you would often exceed this fame damage taken, which means in most cases you don't take bonus damage because Undeath is kicking in so much and so quickly. Now it's been reduced to 15%. So what that means is that when you're around 30% health, you have about 10% damage reduction, which is a defense set. So Undeath now is essentially a counter to executes. If you don't want to be executed by somebody, Undeath will really, really help you avoid that. The only caveat is that the fire damage is going to be noticeable, so just do factor that in. Me personally, I will probably go as a vampire stage 3 to begin with, and if I feel it's not working, I'll probably drop it and just get rid of it completely. But my plan is to use Undeath stage 3 even with the nerf because I still think it's worth it, especially against executes. As with the skills themselves, we have a spammable Shock and Soul. This is a scribed skill, and for the scribed skill we are using, it is Wield Soul, we use the shock damage, and we have the class mastery. You could use Druid's Resurgence if you do not have the class mastery, which is a great option, and this is free to get, but class mastery is better, and we use Breach. You get a skill that does 10,000 initial hit, 2,400 bonus, so it's now a 12,000 spammable. This goes up even higher to about 13,000, 14,000 total when you get the Death Dealer's feat on. So this is the best spammable for Magicka Sorcerer. It's dirt cheap, it hits really hard, and it's got Major Breach. This is a no-brainer. It is the best spammable. So run this. If for some reason you do not have this spammable because you don't own Gold Road or you don't have the scripts, a really good option is in the Sigic order. Go to Imbued Weapon and change this to Elemental Weapon. This will have a similar amount of damage, but you get Burning, Concussed, and Chilled, which is bonus damage on top, and you do also get a cheaper spammable. Crushing Weapon can be used if you can sustain this, and it does give you the Major Breach, which means you do need to use a Stam or Regen Glyph or 2 just to pay for this, but you do get that armor reduction. Elemental Weapon, though, is perfect in my opinion. Another option, if you don't have that either, is to go with False Pulse and then use this for like AoE Cleave or Crushing Shock. Crushing Shock is better for PvP in my opinion, but that's another option there too. The rest of the skills are Crystal Fragments. This is almost 22,000 fully procced, it's stupidly high. Hardened Ward, in PvP this is 15,000 as the shield on the tooltip. And we also get about an 8k heal when we're fully buffed, so 15k shield is insane. We have Streak, which is a stun and a mobility and a gap close. And we have Inner Light, which is a crit boost, passive damage boost because of the extra max magicka. And it also gets the max magicka from the sorcerer passives. The Mage Light passive, sorry. So if you go to Mage Guild, there's a passive down here called Magicka Controller, which gives you 2% max magicka by having that skill. So this is 5% in the skill itself. This is another 2%. So this skill is worth 7% max magicka. Huge. We then run Ice Comet as the ultimate, but we don't actually use this because this is here just because we want the higher max magicka. So that's why I don't use that. So that is an option to do this. And if you do use it, it hits really hard anyway, so it's still a good skill. Back bar, we have another scribe skill. It's Ulfrid's Contingency, and this time we morphed it into Warding Contingency. The scripts we are using for this one are as followed. We are using Alpha's Contingency. We then use Shield. Now the damage shield scales off your max resource. So having the higher max health is really nice because you can push the shield a bit higher and the max magicka just scales it really well. So shield is great. Healing's a bit weak, as you can see. I then use a script called Gladiator's Tenacity. This reduces damage by 8%, and this applies to you and allies you hit with this skill. So this is amazing. It's an 8% damage reduction. And we can then put on something like Intellect and Endurance, which is like amazing. Resolve if you don't use Bound Aegis, but I would use Bound Aegis. So Intellect and Endurance is just more like sustain again. So it's really, really good. If you don't have that skill, this is essentially a free slot. Really good options are things such as Destruction Staff, Elemental Susceptibility. You can put this here instead. And you can then change Shock and Soul to like Crushing Weapon, Elemental Weapon. And that's how you can get around this without any scribing skills at all. Or you can just use it as a free just damage because it's burn and shield and concussed every 7.5 seconds. Or you can go down to the Assault skill line and run Vigor and turn it to Resolve and Vigor, which is again 20,000 heal over 5 seconds. It's stupidly high. So really, really good heal here. So few options on that skill. We then have Dark Conversion, which gives us the ability to turn stamina into magicka and it gives us a heal. So really good skill. And it gives us Minor Berserk, which is more damage. Haunting Curse, when this is fully buffed, it's 15,000. So this is really, really high. It's a delayed burst skill. Really, really good skill. We then have Crit Surge, which is our damage buff. It also gives us healing as we do crit damage. So this is just a nice passive heal and a damage boost. We then have Bound Aegis, which is here for essentially more max magicka. It's 8% max magicka, minor protection, which is again 5% damage reduction, and also minor resolve, which is more armor too. It's a passive damage and defense buff. This is really good. Run this skill. We then have Energy Overload, which is the ultimate we use. These hit really hard, and you can put this on the back bar, so turn it on, swap to the front bar, and you can still use them. So that is why we do it that way around. And you can turn it off there. These are the best skills, in my opinion, for this build. If you want to change them out, the only one I would suggest is go to Negate Magic, and then consider Suppression Field, which will also give you a ability to damage people in a big AoE, but stop them using heals. So great against group play. And you could then put this on the front bar. I would normally back bar this and put Overload on the front bar. Just note that if you are going to use the Atronach ultimate, the Expert Summoner passive only gives you the magicka if you have no pets. As soon as you put down that ultimate, you lose 10% magicka and stamina, which is huge. So just do factor that in. That's why we don't really use this anymore. Now I want to go through the actual sets and then the CP, and then I'll show a superstar so you can see all of it together. For the sets and how we're doing this, we are using Crafty Alfeek. We are using a lightning staff, and we use sharpened. The glyph on this can be whatever you like. An absorb glyph is a great option, a burning glyph, poison, disease, whatever you pick. I normally run poisons though. So personally I go poisons, but I would let you pick what you choose there. We have sharpen for this set, and when we switch to the back bar, Crafty Alfeek turns off. When we switch to the front bar, it turns back on. The second set we use is Wretched Vitality. We use a Inferno staff this time and defending. And you're probably thinking, Dan, why on earth do we use an Inferno staff? Like, why would you do that? There's a really good reason. In the Destruction staff, in Trifocus, you have this fire staff here. Fully charged Inferno staff heavy attacks deal an additional 20,000 over 20 seconds. And with our Death Dealers, this will go up even higher. So as we keep our Death Dealers on, so it says 19,920. You'll notice that this passive scales with spell damage too, and it goes up to about 24,000. Now you're probably thinking though, how do I get this on if I'm using essentially an Inferno staff? If you did this, and this is where it gets quite special, if I heavy attack and swap bar, it still tracks the heavy attack Inferno and puts the dot on them. So all I do this time is when I see my target, I'd buff up. I would heavy attack, curse, and then swap bar. Okay? So you do heavy attack, curse, swap bar. You got the curse on them, you got the extra dot on them for free, and it's just perfect. So the reason we use this Inferno staff is it's a free like damage skill, free dot. The other option is an ice staff, which gives us better block reduction. So when we block, we can block more damage, and block is cheaper. But in all honesty, we shouldn't block as a sorcerer. We are rolling and streaking away. So at which point, the ice staff isn't really useful, and we don't really heavy attack for the shield as a sorcerer. It's not that great. So you're better, in my opinion, just using a fire staff and getting a free damage over time and a free like dot, which will help get kills. So Inferno is like the recommendation this time round. We have Defend on the battle path for more resistance. For the monster set, we are using a set called Mighty Tudon. This gives us our major armor buff at all times and a bit of extra health and armor. I have a heavy helmet and a medium shoulders, reinforced on the helmet, impen on the shoulders. I use triglyphs on the head, the chest and the legs, and magicka on all the small pieces. But if you can afford triglyphs, go for triglyphs on everything because it is better. To load this out, we are using Tudon head and shoulders. We have one piece trainee on the chest, which is heavy armor reinforced. We then have crafty Alfiq waist. This is impen, and we have wretched vitality hands, legs and feet. All medium, all crafted, all impen. If you are more confident in PvP, change some of this impen to well fitted, it will serve you better, but impen is a passive damage boost that is really good at all times. For the jewellery, we then have crafty Alfiq on the neck and the ring. I've gone with recovery, both arcane, and then for the mythic item, we have Death Dealer's Feet, arcane, so you have to transmute this or reconstruct it, and we have spell damage. I would reconstruct it as it's cheaper than transmuting, just as a little tip. So what does this actually look like? Well, if you want to see the superstar, this is how it all looks. So you can screenshot this if you wish. This will really help you out. The last thing to go through is the champion points. For the blue ones, I use Master at Arms for more single target damage, which is everything we do. Weapons expert buffs are overload and our light attacks, which helps. Deadly aim buffs are single target damage further, and ironclad keeps us tanky. You could go and change like deadly aim or Master at Arms. I'll change deadly aim for more defense if you wish, but it's not needed. Another option though is to consider is this fighting finesse instead of deadly aim, as you get bigger crits and bigger crit heals too, so a bit more passive healing, a bit more burst damage, but I would personally keep the consistent damage. For the red ones, you want to run Bastion, it gives you bigger shields. You want Pain's Refuge, which means you have more damage reduction. You want Sustain by Sovereign, which is more sustain, and Celerity, which helps with our speed. For the green ones, you can run whatever you like. It makes no difference. But that is the build. I'd like to know what you think of it. Do you have any questions, etc.? Let me know in the comments down below. If you want to see the build in action, then do make sure you are subscribed, because I do post gameplay in a dedicated format. And if you want to see it live itself, I do actually stream as well on Saturdays on YouTube, so you can see me there at 9 PM UK. And finally, just one last time, here is the superstar. If you get any questions, let me know. And obviously these stats will go higher and higher and higher when we are fully buffed. Just going to show the buffs really quick for people curious. So this is just with Wretched and our damage buff. Our Death Dealers will push our stats even higher still. So you can see we have a good amount of stats. But that there is the build. I want to just say a massive thanks to all of the support, and just a bigger thanks to everybody on YouTube members and on Patreon who do support and get early access. If you want to support myself there are details down below. But until the next video or next stream, I'm going to say thanks for watching, guys. Take care. And bye.